Hi everyone, this is Eric Duran, the head naturalist of the Nature Discovery Center, and this is our second video for Bellaire's Palooza. Today we're going to talk about the reason for a flower. Flowers and fruits, basically. Here at the Nature Discovery Center, wildflowers are blooming everywhere. Here we see the daisy fleabane, and if I go across the lawn, you can see that the lawn is covered with white clover flowers, dotted with yellow buttercups, edged with pink ladies, which are also called showy evening primrose. You've probably seen these around. Oh look, there's a little long-legged fly right there in the middle of the primrose, or on the edge of it at least. So we talked about plant basics the last time we had a plant video. We talked about what a plant is. It's an organism that uses photosynthesis, uses chlorophyll during photosynthesis to create its own food. And we talked about the different parts of a plant. Let's go review that. Got a little table. Oh, fell on the ground. Here we go. Of course, the roots of the plant help keep it in place, help drink water for the plant. The stem passes materials back and forth from the roots and the leaves. It also stores sugars and water for later. The leaves are there to produce food for the plant. It's where photosynthesis happens. It's also the part of the plant that breathes, although there is some breathing being done by the roots as well. So we know about all of these plant parts. What about this other thing that fell on the ground here? What about the flowers? What are the flowers for? Well, when we think of flowers, we think of showy flowers. But flowers can also be very small, very simple. They can be brown or green and hardly noticeable. Basically, flowers are the part of the plant that creates seeds, the babies. So this is basically the reproductive part of the plant. Obviously, what happens is the plant, like this daisy fleabane, makes a flower, and then some kind of pollinator comes and visits the flower. Hopefully, the pollinator has visited the same kind of flower earlier in the day and gotten some of that pollen on it. So hopefully a bee or a butterfly or a flower fly has visited some daisy fleabane earlier in the day, and when it comes over and visits this daisy fleabane to get a drink of nectar, it accidentally knocks off some of that pollen that it got from previous fleabanes. And when it goes down into this flower, the flower can create seeds. And so the main reason for a flower is to make a fruit that has seeds in it. The fruit is any structure on a plant, any structure on the plant that has seeds in it. Now that can be fleshy fruit like these. We've got zucchini, some kind of pepper here, strawberries, yellow squash, an orange, that's probably a clementine, and an apple. But they can also be things like bean pods and nuts. Nuts are dry, hard fruit with a seed inside of it. The seed is the part of the nut inside that is edible. So flowers make fruit with seeds in them. And again, they can be a very simple fruit that is mostly the seed with a little bit of a papery thin layer on the outside, or the fruit can be a big fleshy layer on the outside of the seeds. Something that protects them and gives animals a reason to move the seeds around. So flowers are the reproductive part of the plant. They're there to get pollinated and produce seeds. Now, it's when you see showy flowers like this, attention-grabbing flowers that are different colors. Here, let's look at some more. These absolutely beautiful Gulf Coast or Brazos penstemon right here. That's another nice showy flower. More fleabane. Some pink ladies kind of off in the distance there. All of these showier flowers have bright colors and prominent smells that attract pollinators. But not all plants with flowers are pollinated by animals, like these bees. Some plants just cast their pollen into the wind, and the flowers of another plant somewhere else catch that pollen out of the wind. They get pollinated and they're able to create seeds. Those are the pollens that we are allergic to, the ones that we catch in our nose on the wind. Flowers like this, they have larger, heavier pollen grains that are made to get stuck to pollinators, to animals. Animals like flower flies, beetles, bees, wasps. What's the one I'm forgetting, everybody? Butterflies, moths, bats, hummingbirds, and some other birds as well. So these flowers here don't make pollen that blows in the wind. This is not what's making you sneeze. It's grasses, trees, and some other flowering plants that have wind-borne pollen. Okay, everybody. So the purpose of a flower is basically for reproduction. It makes seeds. It usually puts those seeds in a certain kind of fruit. Now, this zucchini came from a zucchini flower. This pepper came from a pepper flower. This strawberry came from a strawberry flower, etc., right? There was a squash plant, a yellow squash plant that produced a flower, and from that flower, after it was pollinated, it created this yellow squash. Same with a clementine, same with an apple. An apple comes from an apple flower that has been pollinated. Why make fruit from your flowers? Why make fruit with seeds in them that are big and fleshy and delicious? Well, the reason that plants make big, edible, nice fruit, and look how most of these are bright colors that animals will pay attention to. They'll notice this growing in a forest or on the ground or on the edge of the bushes, whether it's blackberries or whether it's raspberries or cherries or any of these fruit. Why make big, juicy, delicious fruit that animals would want to eat? Well, these fruit are delicious, right? Very delicious. And as a matter of fact, everybody, if I were a wild animal, I wouldn't just stop at the outside of the fruit. I might eat the whole fruit, and I would ingest the seeds. Oh, let me eat a little bit more of this apple. I would ingest the seeds, and if I were a bird or a monkey or some other kind of animal that eats fruits whole and doesn't pay attention to the seeds inside, I would move away from the tree or the plant where I found this, and eventually I would poop. That's right, I'd poop, and inside my poop, if I were a bird or a monkey or a sloth, well, sloths really eat leaves, but if I was one of those fruit-eating animals, when I pooped out someplace else, I would poop out the seeds. The seeds would go to the ground with a little bit of fertilizer on them. They would fall far away from the parent plant, and they would have a place to grow out of the shade of their mother plant. So the reason why plants make these showy fruit like this with plump, juicy, I don't know what you call the outer layer. I really should take another fruit botany class again. But with all of this flesh around it that is juicy and sweet and edible, is so that an animal will eat it. They want the fruit to be eaten so that the animal will pass the seeds on to a new location away from the parent plant where it can grow out in the sun, hopefully. So nature, or the plants that produce these, want them to be eaten. And that's just what I'm gonna do. Thanks for joining me, everybody. If you get a chance, you really should come out to the park sometime soon. I don't know how easily you can tell from my video, but we are just covered in wildflowers right now. You might notice all kinds of animals visiting the wildflowers over here. Most of them are different species of bee. And that's exactly what we're gonna talk about in the next video, the different kinds of pollinators. And so it might surprise you how many different species of bee are just in this one little wildflower patch right here alone. Anyways, the bees are helping to pollinate these flowers so that they can create little fruits with seeds inside of them. And hopefully those fruit either fall off onto the ground where they plant new plants or get eaten and carried away where they can be planted somewhere else. Thanks for joining us this week, everybody. We'll see you next week with our video about pollinators. Have a good day, everyone. Hope to see you at the Nature Center soon.